And instead of reading the proper passage that he was supposed to read, he turned to a passage that wasn't in the script. So imagine you're at church and they have a Christmas program, and all the relatives have been invited for this holiday, because that's what it was. It was a holiday. It was a special occasion he got up to read in his hometown. So here he's in his home church, and they're like, oh, he's in town visiting for the holiday, and let's get him up to read the Christmas reading, the Christmas story at this time in the service. And all the relatives have come from out of town, and maybe they invited some people don't usually come to synagogue, and they're like, he gets up to read, and he opens it up to some random passage that's got nothing to do with Christmas, and reads it, slams it shut, and shuts down and sits down. That's what happened in that Bible story. That's why it says all their mouths dropped open, all their eyes were fixed on him, and some of them got really mad because he came in and he said, okay, you've been doing this, and God taught you to do this over and over and over, this pattern. And then he walks in and they're like, who do you think you are coming in? Like it's like at the wedding, right? You're given the microphone and you say the wrong thing. We gave you the script to read. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? So Yeshua loved to do that, and they shouldn't have been that taken by surprise, because that's a Jewish method a rabbi's method of teaching. Pattern, 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 exception. Pattern, 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 pattern. And your cue when he does the exception is, whoa, why did you do the exception? This is a time for a question. What is the meaning of that, Rabbi? Why did you do this instead? So instead of asking Yeshua that, they got mad. So that's what's behind that story, by the way. So here's another verb. But you get lomedet, right? So masculine singular, feminine singular, right? And then you get, now I'm going to leave the end off there for a moment, because I'm going to get some audience participation. And if you don't know the answer, it's fine. I'll give it to you. But following the pattern, what would you expect to see for the ending there? Where you've got lomed, lomedit, lomdim, right? And lomdot, right? Quote. Yeah. Remember the tovot and tovim?
Yeah.
So if I study well, study good, right? It would be lomdim tovim or lomdot tovot. And I recommend when you're learning these, if it helps you, take a word like tovim, tovot, and make it into a little rhyme, right? So lomdim tovim, lomdot tovot. And if you get familiar with it, you'll kind of know what to expect after a while. And if you're looking in the Hebrew, if you remember, the ending of the word looks like this. You get this vowel structure, right? And it doesn't matter. In this case, it would be the dalet, because we're doing lomdim, but it could be any one of these pa'al verbs. You get that hirik vowel with a yod and a mem, right? Same as the ending on Elohim or lomdim or shomrim. In that case, it would be a resh with the hirik, but you're going to get the resh, hirik, yod, mem, right? And so that im is repeated over and over and over and over. So you get used to seeing that if you see it in the scripture, right? So I'm going to switch over to my interlinear for a second. And if I go to Genesis 1:1, right? So you see the hey, the hirik vowel, the yod, and the mem. Him, right? Elohim. So that's the masculine plural ending. That's the word God there. But if you're more comfortable with it in the beginning, you can write it out with the English transliteration and just write the im. Same thing. The im in the English transliteration, or the im with the Hebrew letters. So if you're doing a pattern, if I'm doing the boxes with the X's again, Now, there are other patterns, but this is one of the basic, most common patterns. This is my root. These are my 3 root letters of a root, right? So in the case of Shomer, my root is Shin, Mem, Resh. In the case of Lomed or Lamad, I'm doing the default form, right? It's this. Now, how do you know what vowels to fill in when you conjugate it? Well, guess what? This is the regular format. You add a Vav with a hold-on vowel, the O sound. And this repeats hundreds of times. So if you take the root and you put a little O sound, the Vav with the hold-on, right? And that's where you get your show or your lo, repeated 100 times with 100 different verbs. Fill in your root word and put a, between the first and second letter, put an O sound. That's the normal pattern. And then the second part of the pattern is it'll have a zere vowel, right? Lomed. So you see the pattern here. You've got 2 vowels that are added, the O and the E, right? Right? E. So you get shomer, shomer. And if I was doing another verb, ahav would be, we're talking about ohev, right? But ahav would be the default Strong's, because remember you got your 2 A's. So what you have there in the root is you have an aleph, which is a silent letter, a hey, and a vet, right? Or bet. It's a vet without the dot, right? So you get, that's where you get your ohev from. But if I'm filling in the pa'al vowels, the right? You get ahav, and that would be he loved, right? It's very consistent. So once you understand the pattern, you want to know what is the default form of the verb to love? Oh, ani ohev, right? Where do we get that from? He loved is ahav. It's the pa'al with the 2 ahs. But if we're following this formula for how to conjugate ohev, what would ohev look like in the Hebrew? It follows the same pattern as these other 2 verbs. So let's take the root, right? Fill in our 3 X's. So we're going to get an aleph, we're going to get a hey, and we're going to get a vet, right? And if we fill in what? The first vowel we fill in is the vav as a vowel carrier with a hold-on vowel, which is the O sound. And then we fill in the zere vowel under the second consonant of the root, the middle consonant of the root. Gets the zere vowel, and that would be pronounced O. It's silent, remember, and then the O sound. So the aleph with an O sound, and then the hey with an H sound, right? And that's where you get your ohev, ani ohev. You see, it follows the formula.
Is it the masculine form ohev?
Yes, I'm doing the masculine form here.
It would be different from, I would have to say, ani ohevet. Is it right?
Yes. Here's the formula or the structure for feminine. You add a tav on the end. You do 2 sigol vowels, and you do the same vav with the hold-on. So remember the boxes with the X is your root. So if I'm doing shamar, right, fill in your root first, your 3 root letters. And if you put in your notes this formula, this will work. Right? So put in your little boxes with your X. So fill in your shin, your mem, and your resh. And now I'm going to put the vav with the hold-on. I'm going to fill in my 2 sigol vowels. And I'm going to add my tav on the end. And if you sound that out, that's where you get your shomeret.
Yep.
Right? And likewise, if I wanted to do ohev, So let's do the same. If you do it in the same order, I think it'll help you every time, right? Just get in a habit. And it doesn't matter. You can find your own order if you find one that you like better, but do it the same way every time, right? So I fill in the 3 root letters first. Then I add my Shalom. Then I add my 2 segols. And then I add my tav on the end. And there you get your, if you sound it out, right? Aleph is silent, you get your O hevet. Likewise, Lamed to study. And if I fill in my Vav with the Shalom, right? Lo. And then I fill in my 2 segols. And then I fill in my Tet, or Tav, excuse me. So you get Lomedit, right? I'll give you a minute just in case you're taking notes, and then I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to show you another verb. This word that we're doing, lomed, so if we were in a university and it was a Hebrew professor, he wouldn't say lomed, he'd say lamad. Right? Remember, that's the he studied, the default form. This word in the pa'al means to learn or to study. So one of the first phrases we learned when I was in classroom learning Hebrew was ani lomed, and for you it would be ani lomedit, right? Ivrit, right? Ivrit is Hebrew. And Ivrit comes from, or is related to the same root word as Eber, remember? Eber, right? And that's the name of the person in the lineage between Noah and Abram. So you get Ivrit, ani lomedit Ivrit, but that's Pa'al. Now in the PL, and this isn't something, like I said, stick with what we're working on the Pa'al, but I just want to show you a concept in the Hebrew that's very interesting. So when you get into the PL, the meaning changes from to study and it becomes to teach. So when in the scripture you get the word, now it's conjugated differently, and I'm not going to get into that right at the moment how it's conjugated, but you can look that up on the palim.com. But the PL form is slightly different in the way it's conjugated, and the concept, why does it change from study to teach?